Welcome to a Christian.com's video, and today we're going to have a question and answer segment. We are going to answer the touch me not question. Now, the touch me not question is based upon the two events that occurred in John 20, verse 16, and then John 20, verse 24 through 31. And what it has is an interaction with Jesus and Mary, and Jesus tells Mary not to touch him. But then there's an interaction between Jesus and Thomas, and he has Thomas to touch his hand and his side to verify it or validate that it is him. Now, there's two different scenarios, or these are two different interactions at two different times. And we can find the answers in Hebrews 10:11 and then in the definition of the word ascend. So let's get into that. Let's look at the verses themselves, John 20:16 and John 20:24 through 31. Okay, so here we are at John 20:16 and then John 20:26. And what we're going to do is we're going to read through the passages. And what you want to do whenever you read the Bible, you want to immerse yourself as if you're there. And then you'll be able to pick up on a lot of the little nuances that further goes in to kind of explain things for you. So let's start with John 20:16. So Jesus says unto her, Mary. She turned herself and says unto him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. Jesus saith unto her, Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren, and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and my God and your God. Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord, and that he had spoken these things to her. So now, let's look at this passage. Jesus specifically tells her to state that he ascends unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. Now, a lot of the explanations that you find with this particular verse, or even the question as a whole, it focuses on touch me not. And everyone is kind of looking and dissecting that word and that meaning. But the operative word is not the touch me, but the ascension, that he's ascending to my Father. And note that, remember, he says specifically, go tell my brethren that this is what I'm doing. So now later on we'll go into the word itself, and we'll find out the true meaning, and we'll see exactly what's going on. So now let's jump down to John 20 verse 26. Now, and after 8 days again his disciples were within, and Thomas was with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst, and said, Peace be unto you. Then saith he to Thomas, Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said unto him, My Lord and my God. So now, this is an entirely different situation compared to Mary Magdalene, and that this is after the ascension. So now you can see that these are two different events at two different times. And sometimes you hear the explanation where it goes in to talk about the time span of the priest and the process and all of that. But this goes beyond that. The answer goes beyond just that aspect of the priest and what goes on. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump over and we're going to look at the word ascend. Now, here's the actual saying. Remember, it says, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father." Now, when we define the word, ascension is our translation of the Hebrew name for this offering, Olah, which simply means to go up. So named because the focal point of this offering is that the smoke would rise up from the burning offering towards heaven. It was offered every morning and every evening to mark the boundaries between day and night. Now, this leads the Olah, leads into the understanding of the burnt offering. And now this starts to then open the door of understanding that Jesus, remember, he was the final sacrifice. So Jesus, in essence, is the burnt offering. And now the ascension is the process of the burnt offering, and that the way that the smoke rises and goes towards heaven. And that's where the definition for the ascension, and then the Hebrew meaning for a whole event of the burnt offering. So if we jump over to Hebrews 10, then we'll start to see more of the answer come into focus. So in Hebrews 10, verses 11 through 14, we can see that it talks about the priest and the offering itself. So it says, "And every priest standeth daily, ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifice, which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he has perfected forever them that are sanctified." Now, this is telling and speaking of Jesus, and Jesus was the final sacrifice for all. And now we can see that this sacrifice is a burnt offering, and that it is a whole process in itself. Now, what's poignant is, remember, Jesus made it a point to have Mary Magdalene to say that he has not yet, or that he is going to ascend to the Father. So now this is a step, but the interaction between him and Mary Magdalene becomes very poignant in us understanding the whole basis and the foundation of Christianity and salvation. So when we look at Christianity and the salvation is from what? And that's from the sin. And not only the aspect of the sin, but hell in itself. So we walk today in our Christian belief of making a choice of either spending eternity in heaven or eternity in hell. Now, when Jesus was sacrificed, or I shouldn't say sacrificed, when Jesus was crucified, the 3 days he had to be somewhere. We know he wasn't in heaven. We know that he wasn't on earth. So the only other place is hell. So Jesus, remember, is showing us and is teaching us what is there for us. And everything is pointing for us And the remember, it states that God said that no one shall perish. That's what He wants. That everyone to have forever uh, for to or for everlasting peace and life. So now we know that Jesus went to hell because then it shows us that it does exist. But his interaction with Mary then lets us know that he came from there and he's going somewhere, and he's stating that he's going to ascend to the Father. Now, being that this is a burnt sacrifice and this is a whole process, Mary could not touch him because he was still in the process of ascending, and still that burnt offering, that whole step and process to offer up and for God to receive the sacrifice. So that was a whole process. Had he not interacted with Mary, we would have never known that this was a step or a process, and that we could not reason out that he came from hell and went to heaven. So with this whole interaction with Mary, now we know the three places that the Bible speaks of, and that Jesus went to both, or Jesus has been in to all three, or been in all three places, and that we have the opportunity to choose one of those as being our final place, which is heaven. So you can see now that it has nothing to do with cleaving to him or any of the other aspect of the, not the woman being uncleaned and any of those things. It's a fact and an issue of this was a process, and this was part of the ceremony that goes on with the burnt offering. So Jesus had Mary to not touch him based upon the ascension, and we know that the ascension or the word ascension that we read is associated with Olah, which is the burnt offering process. So hopefully this helps you out. You get a better understanding, and it builds a solid foundation for your belief and your walk. So until next time, may you find your blessings, and we will talk to you again later.